This video is going to be my reaction to the Ravens' 30-23 win over the Commanders. Of course, it's the Ravens' fourth consecutive victory. I thought the offense really dominated the Commanders' defense. Overall, as a team, Washington put up a tremendous fight. They were able to score 10 points in the fourth quarter to keep things close. Any honest Ravens fan is sitting there telling you they're worried about a turnover or a big play by Washington's offense. So credit to Jaden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury, even Quinn, the head coach, who calls the defensive plays, even though they were totally outmatched. Derrick Henry and the Ravens passing game, they're just too good. This looks like a situation to me where if these teams play 10 times, 8 or 9 of those games, the Ravens offense is just going to have too many weapons, too many available concepts that are working that we can go to whenever we want. Early in the first half, I think, well, the first 3 possessions, in fact, both teams played well in terms of their defenses. It's 3-3, I think, at the end of the first quarter. Washington's defense got us a little bit behind the sticks a couple of times in the first half, and then Lamar was just able to throw it out of them and basically throw us back into a 1st and 10 situation. Look, Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers, if you don't know, they're a perfect 13 for 13 catches to targets today. The Ravens' offense overall averaged 11 yards per pass. Ridiculous efficiency. The only time that was short-circuited was the weird interception in the first half where Lamar might have thought Andrews was going to continue moving to the outside. He threw the ball there a little bit wider than Andrews was standing. I think Andrews maybe stopped a little bit or slowed down in space. I'm not sure what the problem was, but the point is this. The Commanders forced one punt and really got shredded defensively. Henry finished with another 100-yard game, this one 132 rushing, 2 touchdowns. We really made things look easy in the second half. I thought their defense got worn down in the first half and the third quarter. At halftime, we had run 35 offensive plays. I think they had run 23 or maybe 24, something like that. Were it not for that interception, and then what I think is a really poor play call by Monken, with about 6:30 left in the fourth quarter, you may recall it, we're down on their 25. We run a QB counter read, which I just think is needless at that point. We didn't need Lamar to do those things today. Yes, could we run QB counter read or QB pin pull pitch, which is what I think I saw in the first half? Could we do those things with Lamar and get yards? Of course we could. I just didn't think we needed to. So many other guys are making plays. Flowers, Bateman, Henry likely had a big catch. Oh, by the way, Mark Andrews showed up today in a big way. I think were it not for that interception and that particular play call that set us back, we eventually settled for a field goal with like 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, something like that. We could have scored 40. I don't think the Commanders fielded the highest level outside corners on the field today, and that's reflected in the output that Flowers and Bateman had. Those two averaged 15.6 yards per target and 15 yards per reception as well because they didn't have a single incompletion. Oh, by the way, Lamar Jackson, 20 of 26 passing on a day when we didn't need him to be Superman hardly at all. It's an illustration of how dangerous and capable this offense is. Certain guys can, quote, disappear for a game. We can't have Lamar Jackson disappear because he's going to have to throw the football. But the point is he doesn't have to do anything special. The reality is look, it's incredible what the Ravens offense is doing right now. In their 4-game win streak, averaging 33 points per game. Yes, they have the Buccaneers next week on Monday night. The Bucs just scored 51 points. I think Baker Mayfield, 15 touchdowns, 1,500 yards passing, over 1,500 yards passing. I thought this game was well in control from an offensive standpoint, barring turnovers. You could kind of see it at halftime, if you ask me, when the Ravens had a 17-10 lead, and we were fortunate enough to get the block kick. I think it's by Ben Cleveland and late in the second quarter, so that's really cool. And then him and Urban almost blocked another one. I think Urban had a really underrated play. I believe in the third quarter, as we got a stop against the Commanders, he or made them settle for a field goal one time, excuse me. He blocked a 2nd and 5 pass play where the tight end is wide open. And if that ball gets past him to the tight end, it's going to be a completion, first down, new set of downs, and I almost said Arizona. And the Commanders are, moving the ball once again. So those two guys, Ben Cleveland and Urban, and look, they both, I think, nearly blocked an extra point later on in the game. So I do think there's one little interesting piece of gamesmanship I want to talk about by the coaching staff. I want to give them credit. It occurs on our last possession. Basically, when we take over with 2:48 left in the game, after the Commanders pulled to within 30-23. If you recall, we get 27 yards to Henry on a toss play. Those toss plays are just absolutely taking advantage of angles by the defense, and Nelson Aguilar did a great job on the pin down block on a defensive end here. It's 27 yards. A couple of other runs by Henry get us a 3rd and 1 with 1:10 left. Something like that. And we call a timeout. Now, normally, in my experience, when you've got a running back like a Henry who's rolling 27 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards on 3 consecutive runs, you call timeout so you don't have to take him out. And so I think there's some data or some evidence or some instinct perhaps that, hey, this is going to be a give to Henry or a boot by Lamar. And sure enough, they took advantage of that conflict. Whenever those two guys touch each other, like a mesh or a play fake, you better guess right as a defense. And if you don't, you're in trouble. In this case, Lamar kept it. Basically, the game-ending first down. He gets hit by Chin late on the left sideline. Part of me is like, Lamar, go get the first down. But he's so tough. It doesn't matter to him. I don't know that the regular rules for quarterbacks necessarily apply to Lamar Jackson. Feel free to let me know if you agree or disagree with that statement. But at this point, we're looking at deep into his career. He takes hits like that and keeps on rolling. And now we're 4-2. And I think we boast the most complete offense in the NFL, in my opinion, in terms of the balance of talent across the width of the field at receiver, tight end, and running back. And oh, by the way, Keaton Mitchell could return later this season, an absolute game breaker, filthy rich on offense at the position. I said that in the offseason. I understand people disagreed with it. Look at what's happening now. Got to give credit to the coaching staff and the Ravens players for not just executing, making plays when their numbers call, but also blocking for each other. The unselfishness, I think, shows up in the run game. Oftentimes, certain guys are not on the field on some of those plays. Lamar today, I have to give credit to the offensive line to a certain degree as well. Lamar was only pressured a handful of times. I think Dante Fowler's credited with 2 sacks, but one of them, I believe, was on the QB counter that I spoke about earlier. For whatever reason, they've given him a sack on that, and maybe I misinterpreted when I looked at the stats. So I don't think there's really 2 sacks there today. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. I did think that defensively early on, we had a good plan. I thought we look at their first 3 drives, the Commanders' first 3 drives. They net 34 yards and 3 points. So Zach Orr's guys had control of them to that point. Washington really did get things going in the second quarter, and they certainly presented problems, even on a day where they have no run game to speak of. 18 carries for 52 yards. Jaden Daniels is still able to go 24 of 35 passing, 2 touchdowns. The one really nice completion of Terry McLaurin on the slant fade, left-hand side of the end zone in the second half against Brandon Stevens. I think that was a 4th down. And so, look, you think of it this way, and Commanders fans probably will, and I can't say that they're wrong to take this perspective. The Commanders scored 23 points today with no run game to speak of. Like I said, 18 carries, 52 yards. Ravens played really well offensively, which isn't going to change, I don't think. And the Ravens still only won by 7. I get it. There'll be different takes on the game. That particular one I just threw out to you is not how I feel about the game. We have the football at the end of the game, the opportunity to score more points. Certainly left points on the field on our first possession, and I think at least one other possession as well. But at no point in time did I feel like Washington's defense was in control of our offensive choices, even when they were slowing down the run game in the first half. I didn't feel like they were taking it away from us such that we couldn't continue to go to it. And sure enough, later on, Derrick Henry starts popping off big runs. You do have to give credit to Jaden Daniels and Kingsbury. They were able to stay close and, in fact, get within 7 in the fourth quarter, despite, in my opinion, a defense on the Washington side that was overmatched. Zach Ertz took turns giving us trouble. He beat, I think, 3 different players on basically the same concept, right to left route, 4 catches, 68 yards. The one he beats Wiggins on, for me, is disappointing. It's too much space. Wiggins is too athletic of a guy to let him get that open in that regard. McLaurin did have the 2 TD catches, but look, he had 53 total yards on 7 targets. So about 7 yards per target, a little over 7 yards per target, I think like 7.42, and then 8.8 yards per completion. So we did a nice job there on McLaurin from a yards per target, yards per completion standpoint. Ertz was able to get free for some big catches. Of course, they had a big DPI on an unfortunate 4th down coverage that I'll talk about here in a moment. I thought we looked better overall on defense against a team from a no-huddle standpoint with an athletic quarterback averaging 31 points per game that came in here playing extremely well. We hold them to 23. Could have been even less. Yannick Ngakoue, I think, is having an impact. He had a sack today. He had a quarterback pressure where he was clearly held, in my opinion. It was the one where Daniels nearly threw an interception to Ardarius Washington. One of, I think, two or maybe three plays where we have opportunities to catch the football. Anyway, as it relates to Ngakoue, he executes a stunt against their left guard, left tackle, ends up moving to the inside, and he's clear path to Daniels, who slides out to the right. I think the left guard holds him from behind. I only saw it once, but in any case, he had a sack later on. We did finish with 3 overall. Seemed like the Ravens' defensive line and linebackers did a pretty good job keeping Daniels from doing too much with his legs. And on a critical 3rd and 8, late in the fourth quarter, Daniels tries to scramble out, if you recall, just before their field goal to close within 30 to 23. Roquan Smith is the guy to be secondary contain and basically force Daniels out of bounds after a short gain. Continued credit has to be given to the Ravens' front 6, 7, because Washington's run game. Look, we knew, I think, if you were being honest with yourself, that Washington wasn't going to get much going consistently in the run game, whether Robinson played or not. You just do not run the ball on this Ravens defense. Here's their rushing yards allowed through 6 games, because I understand people are going to say, well, Robinson didn't play and that had an impact. Fine. Here's the rushing yards: 72, 27, 51, 81, 71, and then 52 today. Okay, Robinson plays. What are they going to run for? 70, 75? They're not going to get to 100 yards with running backs organically. And in fact, Jaden Daniels was their leading rusher today. My point is, at this point through 6 games, I've seen enough evidence. We're going to stop or significantly slow down the run game. The yards are just not there, regardless of who played running back today. Much of what the Commanders got done on offensively was the work with Ertz at tight end from a right to left standpoint, and he was open. I mean, wide open. I thought one of them was against zone, maybe two, but I could be wrong. They did get the pick rub for a touchdown to McLaurin against man, the one that Romo just raved about. Fine. The tight end picks Brandon Stevens, first of all, and that's why there's so much separation. For me, the way I look at the game, that's why I think sometimes that metric is deeply flawed. Average yards of separation created. Give me that with independent of picks or rubs or screen concepts. That's what I like to see. McLaurin made a nice catch. Jaden Daniels, a great throw. Don't get me wrong. I think we're trained from a defensive standpoint to stare at the quarterback too much. I've said that since the preseason, in fact. And in this case, Marcus Williams is moved with Jaden Daniels' eyes. I mean, Romo can say that he's moving him with his eyes. Sometimes it's just a read, and we don't know that, and neither does he. But in any case, Marcus Williams is moved a little bit by Jaden Daniels looking to the right. He comes back to the route. We're clearly trained to do that, and in my opinion, it's been a problem as the year's gone on. I do want to talk about the one coverage situation I'm disappointed in, and then we'll review the Ravens' 4th possession. This is the Commanders' 9th possession. This is where they eventually settle for a field goal to get within 30 to 23. I'm talking about the 4th down coverage we used when they called a DPI on Wiggins. It's a prayer of a throw by Daniels. It's a smart throw in the modern game of football. For 60 years of football, those things were not given to you necessarily just by you throwing the ball up. But we, I think, handed Jaden Daniels that opportunity on the 4th and 12. If you recall, we had got them behind the sticks in Ngakoue with a great move against the left tackle for a sack. Then there's a hold on Washington's offensive line. Pushes it back to a 3rd and 20. 8-yard completion to Zacchaeus, who's a nice little player, if you ask me, at the receiver position. The 4th and 12, Daniels throws it up down the right side to Noah Brown, who's an underrated football player, if you ask me, against Wiggins. Fine, defensive pass interference, cool. It's the coverage choices that Zach Orr made there that I think are poor. I don't think it's a good decision given that we're up by 10 and we're giving them an opportunity to make one play and get the ball 30 yards downfield. And in my opinion, it's a poor decision. It's short-sighted. It's something that doesn't put a player, in this case Wiggins, in a position to succeed. I understand what some people will say. Well, you have to bring pressure sometimes. Sure, you do. Doesn't have to be in that spot, number one. Number two, to me, there's an element sometimes that almost seems to be grab bag, meaning we've got 6 or 7 coverages in a bag, and in certain situations, we just stick our hand in and pull out certain ones. I get it. You got to be unpredictable. At some point, you've got to be able to line up in a certain coverage and not give up 12 yards on a 4th and 12. That reminded me of Wink Martindale and how he would make a cop-out at times in terms of his coverage and say, I'm going to leave it up to Marcus Peters. I'm going to leave it up to Marlon Humphrey. In my opinion, it's a poor coverage choice. I understand that you may not agree. I'm going to talk about the Ravens' fourth possession here, where they're able to go down and break the 3-3 tie. There's a critical third down here to Bateman over the middle for 13 yards. It's a little bit of a play action look, which is unusual on a 3rd and 5. A slight play fake from Lamar to, I think, Justice Hill. Nice timing throw down the left side to Bateman. Kind of a comeback route. Bateman and Flowers, look, they weren't just winning. They were winning clean. And actually, the first play here, I have it marked as an incomplete pass to Flowers down the left side. But if you look at the stats for this game, it says 9 catches on 9 targets. So either I'm wrong or they're wrong. But in any case, we go right back to Bateman on the very next play. It's the 1st and 10 from the -25. Complete to him over the middle. Lamar kind of steps up. I thought earlier in this game there was a situation, and actually Romo identified it quick. Credit to him for not being scared to point it out, because Ravens fans at times have intimidated, I think, or tried to intimidate people into not being critical of Lamar. Lamar, maybe he missed the throw to Andrews, the interception. I don't necessarily think so. I think those guys just weren't on the same page about reading the coverage and where Andrews is going to be. I think Lamar's throwing it, exactly where he wants to throw it. Andrews just kind of stopped or slowed down. But this particular throw to Bateman on the 1st and 10 from the -25, I was happy about it because earlier in the game, before the 4th possession, Lamar had dropped back like 5 yards too deep on a pass play, and we ended up giving up a sack to Fowler that, in my opinion, was his fault. And in fact, Romo identified it. On this play, 1st and 10 from the -25, Bateman with a quick play action up the middle for 23 yards. Lamar actually steps up, moves up in the pocket, which you got to do a little bit more often if you ask me. And then we go to a power play on the very next snap. I think we went hurry up there, but I could be wrong. So the 1st and 10 from the -25, 23 yards to Bateman. And then the very next play from the -47, the 16-yard run by Henry. We made a nice little adaptation. We went twins I, so 2 receivers to our left, tight end, fullback to our right. So Ricard's not next to the tight end. He's not behind Lamar on the midline between Lamar and Henry. He's kind of like canted off center. I would call it Ram. If he was to the left, we'd call it Lion. But in any case, it ends up being a power play downhill. I thought Rosengarten and Falele did a nice job on that play. And then 22 yards to Flowers against man. Look at those 4 plays in succession. 13 to Bateman, 23 to Bateman, 16 to Henry, 22 to Flowers. Really ridiculous if you ask me, the talent that we have. We are forced into a 3rd and 10, and then I think Washington got ahead of themselves and played too aggressively. They were not intellectually honest with themselves in terms of the coverage ability of their outside corners. Simply put, and I think Sane Riestel at this point, for me, is the best guy they've got. Probably better suited to be a nickel, but at Michigan, he played a little bit of nickel, a little bit of outside corner. And in this case, this 3rd and 10 from the 14, they bring heavy pressure, 6 or maybe 7 guys, cover 0, obvious hold by their corner. I just don't think you can do that against Zay Flowers. I don't think you can play a true cover 0 against Zay Flowers and not expect to lose, because if you give him a 2-way go. I would say sticks blitz 0 would probably be the better choice, where guys are reacting to Lamar's helmet and when the ball's in the air. But in any case, it gives us a first and goal at the 3. Henry's able to bounce it outside. He's just so adept at seeing the space. This is supposed to go inside of Ricard's kickout block from a 21 personnel alignment. Ricard is motioning left to right. It's supposed to go off right tackle, underneath of the kickout block, I guess I should say. And he bounces it outside for a 3-yard touchdown. Makes it look easy. We go up 10-3. They did tie it at 10. We were fortunate enough to fortunate enough to take a 17-10 lead at the half. And it was a great play by Ben Cleveland, don't get me wrong, which is a little surprising that he blocks it to finish the half and help us to retain that 17-10 lead. I thought that was important. Again, the defense did a nice job holding them to 34 yards of offense on the first 3 possessions, to the point where we're at halftime. The dynamic, if you ask me, was kind of obvious. They couldn't run the ball, Washington. They needed screens or a little bit of trickery to get down the field for their first touchdown. Tried to flea flicker and then had another tunnel screen. But we had 16 first downs to only 9 for them. We were at 248 offensive yards in the first half, 7.1 yards per play. And of course, we finished at 7.4. Those 2 numbers are actually above what we're averaging for the year, 6.8, which is really ridiculous in and of itself. We gained chunk yardage against this team. It's the 4th game in a row we've been able to do that, even though, this is first half stuff still, even though To that point, we only had 51 yards rushing on 15 carries. We were 2 of 2 red zone touchdowns in the first half, also in line with our season average or how great we've been in the red zone. My point is, even absent Henry's consistent impact, we're still able to move the ball. We averaged 9.9 yards per play in the first half against this Washington defense. To me, at that point, it was obvious they could not handle us. The early interception negated the first possession. I think that play, and then obviously the Commanders missing the field goal at the end of the first half or having it blocked. Yeah, they kind of cancel each other out. I think we had a missed opportunity because through no fault of or through nothing that the Commanders did, they were able to get an interception on the first possession and keep us from scoring early on. In the first half, Daniels had converted 1 3rd and 6 on a scramble. He also had, I think, 9 yards on a scramble on the last possession of the first half. Other than that, that's it. We did a really nice job of keeping him either in the pocket or contained, or he'd have stretched to the sideline. Eckler did have 2 big catches in space. One of them is a coverage bust, in my opinion, on a 3rd and 2 where he releases to the outside. I will say this. The Commanders showed the same formation twice later on in the game. Same exact formation, ran the same exact play, and we covered it up both times. Now, it's the NFL. That's what a defense should do, but this defense hasn't been great at recognition and awareness, so I have to give them credit for that. I thought the defense generally in the first half was playing fast, doing a good job of either pressuring Daniels or keeping him in the pocket. The first half time of possession was important, and this is going to be my final point. 18-11 time of possession for us, almost 19-11, really. And we had run 35 plays. I think our offensive line is controlling people lately, and I think we did that today with Washington. Also, Henry and the combination of him and the offensive line wearing people down. Those 35 plays looked smooth, even when Washington was holding Henry to 2 or 3 yards rushing. Those things started to pop. I think they're no huddle as the NFL season plays out, and it's been effective this year. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to say to you right now, and I could be wrong, and that's fine. I'm just going to get it out there. I think Washington's no huddle will be counterproductive at times. When they face high-quality defenses that can get stops in 3 plays, their no huddle is going to assist the other team in wearing their defense down. Am I saying that's the entirety of the dynamic today? No, I'm not. But I think it was a factor. I do want to talk about Lamar for a moment. The interception to Andrews. We talked about him dropping back in the pocket too much to give up a sack. Again, Romo covered that. So those are some hiccups early in the game. But look, the reality is this. In the last 4 games, Lamar Jackson is 71 of 101 passing. So 70% completion percentage. All wins, obviously. He's got 8 touchdowns against 1 interception. It's ridiculous what he's doing. He's being highly efficient. You recall the wins in week 3 and week 4, we didn't have to throw the football very much. Today he was a ho-hum 20 of 26. It's almost like if you've ever watched basketball a lot, maybe particularly even like high school or college, you show up to watch a great player play, and you watch the game and they play well, don't get me wrong, but you leave and you ask your friends in the car ride on the way home, how many points you think you had? Everybody's like, 34, maybe 36. And then you look in the newspaper. Well, this tells you how old I was. You look in the newspaper the next day, or you look online 20 minutes later, and you have 46. That's what Lamar reminds me of. He reminds me of the guy that's so efficient that he doesn't actually look like his numbers are as good as they are. He lit up Washington today. Jaden Daniels played well, don't get me wrong, but Lamar was really in control. And then Andrews showing up was big. Flowers being 9 for 9, Bateman being 4 of 4. Those 2 guys are playing well. That was a big touchdown catch to put us up 17-10. This offense is absolutely rolling. I think it's an interesting conversation to have through 6 games. Where does this offense rank compared to other offenses that the Ravens have had historically? We've had some great ones, particularly 2019. This one, if you ask me, is right up at the top. I don't pretend to have tremendous historical knowledge of every single year what our offense has done, but right now this one looks about as clean, efficient, talented, with the width of potential impact players. Basically so much depth that we have any player who can, to use another basketball comparison, score 25 on down to like our 9th best player. That sounds ridiculous, I know, but so many guys are making plays today. Nelson Aguilar had a big play and had a big block on Henry's run in the 4th quarter. Now we head to Tampa Bay to face a Bucs team that I think just scored 51 against the Saints. It's going to be fun on a Monday Night Football game. Huge test for the Ravens defense. Like I said, Baker Mayfield now has 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. I think he did throw 3 interceptions today, but over 1,500 yards passing on the season. You guys let me know what you think of the Ravens offense today. The defense did, if our defense can do this, hold good to very good offenses to 23 points, our offense, absent turnovers, is going to score 30 on pretty much everybody we face, in my opinion. Appreciate you guys' time, man. Let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this reaction to the Ravens' 30-23 win over the Commanders to push their record to 4-2, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.